The great hall of Zirvain shimmered with iridescent light, refracted through the crystalline towers of the Zalari Empire. Beneath the vaulted ceilings carved from ancient starstone, nobles from across the galaxy gathered to witness a diplomatic event not seen in 1,000 years, an interspecies union between a human and a Zalari royal, and at the heart of this spectacle stood Captain Cale Thorne, heir to the United Earth Fleet, tall and clad in ceremonial armor. His black hair was trimmed close in the style of Earth's command, his eyes sharp, observant. Across from him, the focus of his vow, stood Princess Seraphina Veital, first daughter of the alien king, draped in a cascade of silver thread and emerald light. Her skin shimmered in soft hues of violet and moonstone, a natural trait of her species, and her eyes, luminescent and pale gold, held an ancient sadness. Despite her quiet dignity, Kyle noticed the slight tremble in her hands. Not of fear, but of defiance. Above them, the towering presence of King Vorzath loomed. His voice echoed across the hall as he spoke, not with pride, but with condescension. "So the humans have come to take our barren flower," he proclaimed, his voice laced with acid. "A union forged in diplomacy, but destined for extinction. Let the human take his prize. Heirs will not follow, only shadows." Laughter rippled through the Zalari court, their amusement a cruel serenade. Cale's jaw clenched, but he remained still. He had known this would come. The rumors had circulated for years that Seraphina could not conceive, that her womb, touched by some ancient curse or genetic flaw, had sealed her fate as a queen with no legacy. But Cale had never sought a queen to breed heirs. He wanted a partner, and in Seraphina, he had found an equal. Still, the words burned. Seraphina lifted her head, her voice calm and cutting. Better a barren flower than a poisoned tree. The room froze. The king's eyes narrowed, but Kyle smiled, stepping forward. "Your Majesty," Kyle said evenly, "Earth does not measure worth by womb or bloodline. We measure it by courage, wisdom, and the strength to stand against cruelty. Your daughter is more than worthy." King Vorzath sneered. "Then may your empty cradle keep you warm, human." The ceremony proceeded under icy silence. When the rites were sealed with sacred fire, Seraphina placed her palm against Cale's. Their skin glowed, bioluminescent energy bonding them under Zalari law. It was done. Later, in the moonlit gardens of the palace, away from watchful eyes, Cale found Seraphina standing by a luminescent pool, her reflection dancing on its surface like a ghost. "You don't have to say anything," she said quietly, her back to him. "I wasn't going to," Kyle replied, stepping beside her. "I just wanted to be where you are." She turned to him slowly. "You know the rumors are true. I may never be able to give you a child." "I didn't come here for children," Cale said, voice firm. "I came for you." Seraphina studied him, as if looking for doubt, but found only certainty. She touched his face gently. "You may have just made the greatest enemy in the galaxy." He chuckled. "Then it's a good thing I married the galaxy's most powerful woman." They laughed together, soft and fragile, the sound a thread of hope in a world of sharp edges. 2 months. Later the alliance was shaky but held. Kyle and Seraphina traveled to the frontier world of Orion's Spine, where peace talks between border colonies were being mediated. Tensions between the Zalari separatists and human miners threatened to erupt into war. And Kyle, warrior turned diplomat, was walking a blade's edge. But neither Cale nor Seraphina knew that shadows moved beneath diplomacy. General Rakjur, a former warlord exiled by King Vorzath, had returned from the void, rallying defectors and mercenaries. His goal, to claim the Zalari throne and wipe out the human alliance. One night, as Kyle slept aboard the diplomatic barge Unity's Grace, Alarms screamed to life. Explosions lit up the horizon as missile fire rained down. The hull shuddered. Violently, Kale leapt from bed, already pulling on his armored suit. "Kyle! It's Rak-Jur! He's attacking the diplomatic fleet!" Kyle's lieutenant, a wiry woman named Cora Yates, burst into the room with a plasma rifle in hand. "We're—" "Surrounded. They knew we'd be here." Kyle's mind raced. "Where's Serafina?" "Last seen in the Arboretum. We're cut off by fire." Without hesitation, Kale sprinted down the corridor, dodging debris and plasma fire. He fought like a storm, cutting down enemy infiltrators with ruthless precision. When he reached the Arboretum, a glass sanctuary floating amid stars, he found Serafina holding her own, her hands glowing with ancient Zalari energy as she hurled psionic blasts. But behind her loomed a behemoth, Rak-Jur himself, armored in void-black exosuit. Tech, towering and monstrous. "So the human comes to die beside his broken queen," Rak-Jur sneered. Kyle didn't hesitate. "Better to die beside her than rule beside you." They clashed like titans. Blade met claw. Energy met brute force. Kyle was fast, but Rak-Jur was relentless. Every blow Kale landed was answered with a crushing counter. Just as Rak-Jur raised his blade for the killing strike, Serafina screamed, a sound not of fear, but of power. Her hands ignited with blazing gold, and in a pulse of energy, she struck the warlord full in the chest. Rak-Jur was hurled through the glass wall and into the vacuum beyond. Kyle gasped, his body bloodied and bruised. He looked at Serafina, eyes wide. You did that?" Serafina collapsed into his arms, trembling. "I don't know what's happening. Something inside me. It's changing." He held her tightly. "We'll figure it out. Together." The medical bay of Unity's Grace pulsed with the low hum of scanning equipment. Outside the reinforced observation window, debris from the earlier battle still shimmered in the orbit of Orion's spine, like stardust mourning the fallen. Inside, Captain Kale Thorne sat in silence, his hand firmly wrapped around Serafina's. She hadn't stirred in hours. No bruises, no bleeding. But her body was changing. Her skin, once a consistent, smooth violet tone, now pulsed faintly with golden veins of light running in slow streams beneath the surface, like glowing rivers under moonstone. Occasionally, a pulse would quicken, as if her blood were alive with electricity. Kyle hadn't moved from her side. His muscles ached, and dried blood crusted his collar from the fight. But he wasn't leaving her. Not now. Not after what she did. What she became. The hiss of the door broke the silence. Dr. Elon Maris stepped in, flanked by two Zalari healers whose flowing robes fluttered as if alive. The doctor glanced at Kale, her expression equal parts awestruck and unsettled. "We've completed the second round of scans," Elon said, voice low. "It's not a physical injury. Her vitals are strong, stronger than they should be. But her DNA is rewriting itself." Kyle stood, tension in his posture. "His rewriting how?" "She's not just recovering. She's evolving," Elon said. "Her Zalari genome shows activation in sequences we believed extinct. Ancient strands, almost mythological. It began the moment she discharged that psionic wave against Rak-Jur." One of the Zalari healers stepped forward. He was tall and weathered, his skin marbled like quartz, and his voice echoed with memory. "This is the mark of the first flame." Kyle stared at him. "The what?" "It is not a sickness," the healer continued. "It is prophecy. The flame is the source of life and psionic force. A rare convergence, one born once every 1,000 years. Most are stillborn. But when the flame takes root, it signals rebirth." Kyle's breath caught. "You're saying Serafina wasn't barren? She was waiting to awaken?" The healer nodded slowly. "She was sealed, not broken." Kyle turned to Serafina again. Her chest rose in smooth rhythm. The golden glow intensified for a moment. And then, her eyes opened. They were no longer the pale gold of the Zalari nobility. Now, white light bled from them, threaded with fire. She blinked slowly, disoriented, as if waking from a dream far too real. "Kale," she whispered, her voice layered, both hers and something more. "I saw it. In the darkness between stars. I saw my father, and something deeper." Kale leaned in. "What did you see?" "There's a presence," she said, "old and watching. It called to me when I released the energy. It called me daughter of flame." Kyle reached for her hand. "You don't have to face it alone. Whatever's awakening, we face it together." She tightened her grip. "I think I'm pregnant." The words dropped like gravity. Kale froze, his mind struggling to process it, even though part of him already knew. The impossible was happening. A knock interrupted their moment. It was Lieutenant Cora Yates, her face pale. "Captain, you need to see this." Kale nodded. Once to Serafina, kissed her hand, and followed Cora to the ship's holocom center. A projection shimmered to life. The face of King Vorzath filled the space. His golden crown gleamed like a starburst, but his expression was carved from ice. "I congratulate you, Captain Thorne," the king began, voice dripping venom. "I had not imagined you would be the one to awaken the curse I buried." Kyle narrowed his eyes. "She is no curse. She's a miracle." Vorzath's mouth twitched. "You think you've won something? You don't understand what you've unleashed. The flame does not bring peace. It brings war. It consumes those it touches. Her mother died from it. So will your child." Kale stepped forward, anger flaring. "You're afraid," the king sneered. "I am prepared. You? You are in orbit above a dead planet with no allies. And now, I declare you rogue. Earth will not interfere. They fear the flame more than I do. Surrender her, or I will burn your ship to stardust." Kyle didn't flinch. "Try it." The transmission cut, but the message had been received. Back in the medical bay, Serafina was sitting up, her breathing calm, hands glowing faintly. Kyle knelt before her. "He knows. He's coming," she nodded. "He'll try to kill us both. And our child." Kale touched her cheek. "Then we don't run. We fight." She looked into his eyes. "You'll fight your way through a king's wrath for me?" "I already did. And I'll do it again." Serafina smiled, sad and proud. "Then let's make him regret the day he called me Barren." Elsewhere, across the void, within the obsidian halls of the Crystal Spire on Zalaria Prime, King Vorzath sat upon his throne, fists clenched. His advisor, Lord Tailkar, knelt beside him. "They survived the attack," Tailkar murmured. "And there are whispers. The flame stirs in her womb." Vorzath's face twitched. "I sealed her fate at birth. Her mother's line was never meant to endure." Tailkar's voice was cautious. "If the flame returns, the people may no longer see your line as divine. She carries not just a child, she carries prophecy." Vorzath stood, his eyes glowing with fury. "Then prophecy will burn with her." He turned to a nearby console and activated a deep space transmission. "To all Zalari battlecruisers in the Outer Rim, lock coordinates on Unity's Grace. Initiate annihilation sequence." The stars around Unity's Grace shimmered in eerie stillness, calm, before a storm unlike any other. The crew moved with urgent precision as battle alarms pulsed through the corridors. Captain Kale Thorne stood on the command deck, eyes fixed. On the forward display, where the shimmering silhouettes of incoming Zalari warships blinked into view. Dozens, maybe hundreds. "Multiple heat signatures, sir," Lieutenant Cora Yates reported. 3 dreadnoughts, 6 cruisers, 1 battlesphere. "Gods, that's the Judgment Crown! The King's personal ship!" Kale's jaw clenched. "He's making it personal." A flicker of motion caught his eye as Serafina stepped onto the bridge. She no longer wore the white robes of exile. Instead, her armor gleamed like molten silver, edged in crimson lines of energy that pulsed with every beat of her heart. Her presence silenced the room. Her golden eyes no longer held just nobility. They carried fire. "I know what he's bringing," she said. "He's using the Null Spire protocol, a kill pattern designed to erase Flameborns before they can awaken fully." Kyle turned to her. "Then we don't give him the chance. We hold the line." Seraphina walked to his side, and their fingers brushed. "We're outnumbered, outgunned, and isolated." "Yeah," Kyle said with a crooked grin. "Just how I like it." On her signal, a sphere of radiant energy enveloped the ship, a living shield crafted not from metal, but from Seraphina's will. She had learned to shape it quickly, instinctively, as if the flame whispered the secrets of power directly to her mind. The crew stared in awe as lines of light danced across the hull. Then came the first strike. A beam of pure plasma lanced out from one of the Zalari dreadnoughts. It slammed into the barrier, lighting the void in blinding white. The ship trembled, systems flickering. But Unity's grace held. "Shields down to 67%, Yates shouted. "She can't take another barrage like that." Kale turned to Seraphina. "We need options." "I can push back," she said. "Not just defend, retaliate." She closed her eyes, hands raised, and a ripple of heat expanded from her chest outward. Golden light spiraled from her palms and formed a blazing lance that tore through space. It struck the lead cruiser head-on, ripping it apart in a supernova of screaming metal and vacuum implosion. Cheers broke out across the bridge, but Kale raised his hand. "It's not over." Indeed, from behind the wreckage emerged the Judgment Crown, its colossal shape eclipsing the stars. Inside the enemy flagship, King Vorzath stood silently in his command throne, watching the flames of his destroyed vessel dance across the view screen. "She dares strike back," he whispered. Just like her mother. General Skarn, his most loyal commander, shifted uneasily. "She's awakened. Her power is no longer theoretical." "I see it," Vorzath growled. "Then it's time to remind her what flame truly is." He activated the Spire Cannon. From deep within the heart of the Judgment Crown, a hum began, low, ancient, and resonant. A black beam laced with twisting shadows shot forth, tearing a line through space, aimed straight at Unity's grace. On the human ship, alarm screamed. "Brace for impact!" Kyle shouted. The shadow beam struck the outer shields. Seraphina screamed, stumbling to one knee, clutching her stomach, not in pain but in defense. The flame responded within her, burning through the darkness like a sun flaring to life. "No," she cried, "I won't let him take this from me." Golden fire exploded outward, not as a weapon, but as a wave. It surged through the bridge, through the walls, through every crew member on board, infusing them not with power, but with clarity, courage, and something deeper, a piece of her heart. Every console flickered to life, systems previously damaged now restored. Guidance arrays recalibrated, engines rebooted. Kale watched in awe as the ship responded like it had been reborn. "What did you do?" he whispered. "I shared the flame," she said, panting. "The ship, the crew, we're connected now." "As one," he pulled her close. "You just made us gods, Seraphina." "No," she said. "You made me human. I only gave that love back." Kyle turned to his crew. "Then let's show that bastard what humans do when family is threatened." "Target the propulsion systems on the King's ship," Yates confirmed. "Load plasma torpedoes, full spread," Kale ordered, "and charge the ventral arc cannons. We're taking out the throne." Unity's grace turned in space like a living phoenix, engines flaring with golden fire. The once defensive ship now surged forward, weapons lighting the stars. The Zalari fleet responded. A wall of fighters screamed toward them, but they were too slow. Seraphina stood at the bow, arms raised, and the flames curved ahead like wings. Fighter after fighter burst into harmless sparks before they could close in. Kale moved through the chaos with a warrior's precision. Target acquired. Locked torpedoes. Locked. Fire. The torpedoes rocketed forward, streaking golden blue. Across the darkness, slamming into the enemy's propulsion core. The Judgment Crown shuddered, lights flickering. For the first time in centuries, the king's throne was vulnerable. But Vorzath wasn't finished. Inside the dying flagship, he turned toward the central altar. Activate the failsafe. If she bears the heir, I will not let it live. Telkar hesitated. You would destroy your own grandchild. Vorzath's face twisted. I would save the galaxy from another cursed line. But before he could act, a new pulse tore through space. Seraphina's eyes snapped open. The flame roared inside her, and somewhere, deep within her womb, the spark ignited. She gasped. Kyle, he's here! Kyle's eyes widened. Who? Our son. Time stood still aboard Unity's grace. Amid the storm of war and the glow of dying stars, Seraphina floated within a cocoon of golden light, her body trembling with a power that was no longer hers alone. The flame had expanded, evolved. Inside, her womb, it burned brighter than any star, pure and new. Kyle knelt beside her, cradling her gently as the energies swirled around them. He's already awakened. Tears glistened in Seraphina's eyes. He's not just alive, he's conscious. He felt the threat. He answered it. Even Cora Yates, hardened by battle, stepped back in awe. Sir, energy readings are cool, off the charts. It's not just flame anymore, it's something we've never seen, something beyond. But the moment was fleeting. A shrill, splitting sound vibrated through the void. Outside, the Judgment Crown twisted on its axis, drawing energy inward in an unnatural spiral. The failing engines had not gone dark. They were transforming. A monstrous shape unfurled from the king's flagship. Mechanical limbs, draconic, barbed and miles long, emerged from the ship's undercarriage. A mouth formed from collapsing. Steel and obsidian plasma, screaming across frequencies the human mind could barely endure. Kale's voice dropped. What in the hell is that? Seraphina stood, shaky but radiant. It's the king's final weapon, the devourer of flames. A living, war-forged god, created from every dead flame-born he hunted. The thing moved like a living wound in space, propelled by the agony of murdered bloodlines. It wasn't just a machine. It was a graveyard bound into flesh and metal. And it was coming for them. Evasive maneuvers, Kale barked. All batteries fire at will. Unity's grace surged in an arc, streaks of golden light and retaliatory fire blazing across its path. But the monster that had been the Judgment Crown didn't flinch. It opened its mouth and a black sun formed within. Kale didn't need a readout to understand. That'll erase us, and everything within 1,000 kilometers. Seraphina staggered to the viewport, her voice quiet but unwavering. I can stop it. I have to. Kyle turned sharply. No, you're carrying our son. She smiled, sad and bright. Which is exactly why I have to survive this. I'm not dying today. I'm becoming. Then the cocoon around her collapsed and reformed. But this time, it wasn't just golden fire. It was silver threads, starlight laced with the memories of life itself. And within it, her body was changing, not into a weapon, into a channel. Through her, the unborn heir began to speak, not in words, but in waves of will. Kyle felt it first, a pull in his chest, like something calling home. The crew dropped into stunned silence as consoles began glowing with symbols they didn't recognize, but somehow understood. The ship responded like a creature awakened from sleep. Metal groaned. Plates shifted. Wings of energy unfurled from the hull. Unity's grace was changing, reborn in real time into a ship bound by life, not forged by men. The heir, still unborn, was commanding it. "Captain," Cora whispered, "we're no longer piloting the ship." Cale placed his hand on the console. "No, we're part of it now." The two forces surged toward each other, the grotesque monstrosity of the king's spite, and the radiant, evolving brilliance of something entirely new, the flame, reborn through human love and alien legacy. The first impact hit like the sound of gods screaming. Metal shattered, shields collapsed and reformed. Seraphina, surrounded by radiant mist, kept her hands raised as the energies collided again and again. Then, silence. Within the enemy machine, Vorzath's soul had become entangled in the monster's code. He watched, screaming silently, as his weapon began to unravel, not from the outside, but from within. "Impossible," he hissed. "What force? What mutation is this?" And in response, he felt it. A voice, small, newborn, but vast, curious, and angry. "Why do you hate what you don't understand?" The king's breath caught. "Why did you call my mother broken? Why did you fear her womb?" "No," Vorzath gasped. "No, you should not be. You judged a seed before it bloomed. And now you will answer to the fruit." Within seconds, the devourer began to disintegrate. Limbs collapsed in on themselves, energy bled into light, and finally, with a sound like crystal breaking, the core imploded. Silently, a ripple tore across. The Zalari fleet. Their command was gone, their horror weapon erased, and standing where their king's flagship once ruled was Unity's grace, now cloaked in radiant, white gold fire, motionless but undefeated. Inside the ship, Seraphina collapsed into Cale's arms. He caught her gently, cradling her to his chest. "It's over." She smiled weakly. "No, it's beginning." "All readings stabilizing," Cora reported through tears. "And sir, there's a heartbeat. 2 of them." Kyle looked down at Seraphina, trembling with awe. "He's real." She nodded. "Our son, the heir of flame and earth." The bridge crew stood in silent reverence. They hadn't just won a battle. They had redefined what life could be, what love could create, what fear could no longer destroy. The war ended, not with a treaty, but with silence. The Zalari fleet, leaderless and shaken by a defeat they could neither understand nor explain, retreated beyond the Shadow Nebula, their ships scattered and their will broken. News of the fall of the Judgment Crown spread like wildfire through the galactic systems. Across worlds once subjugated under Zalari tyranny, a strange name began to rise. Cale of Earth, flame-bound, and beside it, Seraphina, the womb-forged, mother of the heir. But titles meant little aboard Unity's grace. For Cale and Seraphina, survival had given way to something more powerful: creation. It had been 3 weeks since the final battle. 3 weeks of quiet. 3 weeks of change. Kyle sat beside the viewport in their private chamber, a hand resting lightly on Seraphina's growing belly. It had begun to show, glowing faintly under her skin, as though the unborn child carried a star within him. And maybe, in some way, he did. "Every time I touch him," Kyle whispered, "I feel like I'm holding a future I don't deserve." Seraphina leaned into him, her head against his shoulder. "You gave that future to me, Kyle. You believed in me when even I had stopped. I was the broken daughter of a cruel king, and you saw more." He kissed her forehead. "I saw the strongest woman in the galaxy." Outside the viewport, a new station floated in construction. Hearthspire, a sanctuary founded not by empire or conquest, but by alliance. It would be the new neutral center of diplomacy and peace, led not by generals but by thinkers, healers, and dreamers, and its heart would be the flame-born embassy, dedicated to Seraphina and the child whose birth had rewritten genetics across 2 species. "Has the council responded?" Seraphina asked. Kyle nodded. "The Terran High Assembly sent a message this morning. They're calling the boy the Heir of Convergence, a new classification, human and Zalari, both, but also something beyond, something next." Seraphina looked away, uncertainty flickering across her face. "What kind of life can he have, Kyle, when every empire wants to own him or destroy him?" "The kind where he'll never be alone," Kyle said, "because he'll have us, and he'll have purpose, not prophecy." She smiled, pressing his hand against her belly. "He just kicked. Did you feel that?" Kyle froze, eyes wide. That was a kick. That felt like an internal detonation. Seraphina laughed softly. "He's got your fire." "No," Kyle said. "He's got ours." Soft chime rang through the room. Cora's voice came through the intercom. "Captain, sorry to interrupt. A Zalari envoy ship has entered orbit." Kyle and Seraphina exchanged a glance. "Let it dock," Kyle said. "Prepare the meeting hall." Minutes later, they stood side by side at the base of the central chamber aboard Unity's Grace. The Zalari ship was modest, stripped of insignia. A single passenger emerged, an elder male with pale violet skin and weary gold eyes. No armor, no weapons. "I am Taelkar," he said with a respectful bow. Once the king's chronicler, now merely a witness. Seraphina studied him carefully. "You served my father. Why come now?" "I come not to represent the Zalari," he replied, voice soft, "but to record the moment history changed. I watched a tyrant fall to his own pride, and I saw a daughter, once cast aside, rise with a flame no one expected. The galaxy will know what happened here. I will see to it." He looked at Kale. "Human, I once thought your kind small, limited, but you taught the stars something rare, the power of unity through love, not domination. You held Seraphina not as a weapon, but as a partner. That changed her. And it changed what she passed on." He stepped forward, then knelt before Seraphina's belly, hand pressed respectfully over his chest. "To the Heir, may you rise without chains. May you lead without fear." After he departed, the chamber remained still. Kale turned to Seraphina. "He's not the only one who'll want to see him." "I know," she said. "But we decide who gets close. This time, no council, no king. No legacy will own his future." Together, they walked back to their quarters, fingers entwined. A golden shimmer followed behind them, small, almost invisible. Their son's first spark of independent power. He was learning, growing, waiting. Months later, the galaxy bore witness to a moment once deemed impossible. A human captain stood on the steps of Hearthspire. Beside him, the last true flame-born princess. In her arms, the child of 2 legacies. Photographs, holograms, speeches, but none captured the truth of it better than the quiet moment when Kyle, exhausted after greeting representatives from 62 species, held his son beneath the stars and whispered, "Your grandfather mocked me for loving your mother. He said she was barren, a dead ember. But you, little star, you're living. Proof that love rewrites fate." The baby cooed, hands glowing softly, and above them the sky shimmered with a new constellation, created by the flame-born elders to mark the rebirth of hope, a reminder to all that where fear ends, love begins. And from love, new galaxies are born.